On that note, during your first installation, we're more than happy to help you on the phone. We're more than happy to come out to the site towards the end of the day and help you with dip switch setup, check temperatures, make sure you're insulated. We'll do that on your first installation, absolutely. We'll sell one of these. Give me a call a couple days before. We'll plan it. I'll come up in the afternoon. We'll meet you there. We'll set it up together, make sure it's working well. Okay, just for your comfort and peace of mind as well. Okay, so we don't see situations like the photos I showed you is the idea behind it. A little about Gree. Gree makes a lot of these machines for a lot of different brands. So you've probably seen it branded. I think Train is using it. Continental's using it. There's a King Home model, a lot of models anyway. Gree is the original manufacturer. There's a reason why everybody's rebranding Gree as their own. We have a smaller footprint, and we've got what's called a mid-pressure jet. It's really commercial technology in a residential unit, but because of this mid-pressure jet, we can have a smaller, quieter unit, have a smaller footprint. So on a cold day, my mid-pressure jet, I'll show you how it works in a minute, but our mid-pressure jet actually injects hot gas into the compressor, whereas our competitors have to ramp up and get to full capacity, being very loud and noisy. Well, this video will just put it in perspective.
Hello, Greg runs with Gree. Simply the best in cold climate heat. That's because Gree Flex and Multi-Pro use Ultra Heat technology that makes the unit a true cold climate heat pump. These units use a two-stage, two-cylinder enhanced vapor injection burner-driven compressor that allows these units to heat effectively down to minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Gree Ultra units can go as low as minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit.
This unit in
The
particular,
Ultra Heat
minus
compressor
30
is a three-pipe
Celsius.
compressor. It's a suction inlet cylinder, mid-pressure jet,
This is the guy right here.
and your discharge. For the Ultra Heat compressor to achieve cold climate heating, the following components are needed: a gas liquid separator, the electromatic valve, and with those two components, that will allow refrigerant to flow through the electromatic valve into the mid-pressure jet of the compressor. Let me show you how this all works together. Here's the refrigerant flow diagram of the Flex unit with the Ultra Heat compressor. Normal refrigerant flow in heating mode. Hot gas refrigerant is discharged off the top of the compressor to the indoor coil, where heat is released into the indoor air. The refrigerant condenses back into a liquid and then flows to the secondary EUV. This will subcool the liquid some before it flows into the bottom of the gas liquid separator. The cool refrigerant will then flow from the bottom of the gas liquid separator to the primary
first, it's our
EUV
competitor
to flash
ultimately.
refrigerant
We're
into the
storing
outdoor
hot
coil,
gas
where the
here.
refrigerant will boil off into a gas, while absorbing heat into the refrigerant. Then the refrigerant flows back to the compressor into the low pressure cylinder. In cold climate heating,
this is
the
how it is
electromatic
different.
valve will open and allow refrigerant to flow from the top of the gas liquid separator through the solenoid into the mid-pressure jet, into the high-pressure cylinder of the compressor, effectively compressing the refrigerant a second time and increasing the discharge gas temperature. Keep in mind, the main board in this unit uses information from the thermistors and the pressure sensor to determine when cold climate heating is needed and how often and how long the electromatic valve will be open. And this is what makes Gree simply the best in cold climate heating. With Gree, they're by your side.
So that's how our unit's small and compact. I don't know if you've worked with any other brands, but they're significantly larger, and on a cold day, they can get very, very noisy. Now, today we'll focus on our outdoor unit, whether it be, I'm going to say 1.5 to 3 ton or 3.5 to 5 ton. Okay, matched with an indoor furnace with either our Gree coil or our Aspen coil. Okay. Now the unit should be very quiet, as you see here, 2 3-ton, 52 decibels, my 5-ton model 58. This rings true all summer long, right through. It's just in the winter months that we might get a little louder than this, and that's during a defrost cycle. So I'll say it a few times, but we would recommend to use a stand, not put the unit on wall brackets. Again, it's a very quiet unit, but on a cold day in the winter, I'm going to say there's going to be a handful of days that the customer won't appreciate that when the unit's going back and forth in defrost. So whenever you can put it on a stand, do so. Stay away from wall brackets. Okay, our case coil here, really nice case coil. It's made to fit, this is my 1.5 to 3 ton right here. It's made to fit right on top of on a Lennox 70, an American Standard, or Train 60-80,000. We would like to see a transition. Okay, 8 to 10 inch ideally would be what we'd like to see. If we were doing this, not only would we have more air for the heat to dissipate through the coil when the furnace is on, we'll also have an access point to inspect and clean the coil. Okay, we strongly recommend that. We do want to see some space between that coil and the furnace.
Do you sell them?
Sorry, we do not. I'm looking for one. There was one recently on LinkedIn that had a built-in access door and everything, so I'm going to bring that to my boss's attention because I thought it was amazing. It was pre-made. It was heavy enough to, solid enough metal to sit that coil on it nicely. So I am looking for that, but in the meantime, try and make some type of a transition. I know it's an exact fit in a lot of cases, but we do want 8 to 10 inches. Okay. Now, we need 5/16 access valves. I think that's kind of rings true with just about any heat pump these days. We've been using them for ductless units for several years now. Okay. What's nice about the Gree coil is I've got valves on the coil, the same valves as I have on the unit. So if we wanted to do our vacuum or anything of that nature, we can do everything in the basement where it's warm and dry. So a complaint I get quite often on this unit, I really believe this is the best money can buy right now, but there are a few complaints I have as well. One, when I hook up my low voltage here, it's hard or impossible to hook my gauges up properly. So one thing I learned from YouTube on it is if you unscrew these two screws here, pull them right out, you can actually move this out and connect your gauges. So that's one little secret. At the same time, another is just move inside. You've got all the same ports and access inside, so we can do everything inside we can do outside. So keep that in mind. Now, we claim the Gree coil is multi-position. It is and it isn't. It can go horizontal left and right, and it can go upflow. For a downflow application, the Aspen is approved for a downflow application. So I don't know if anybody installed an Aspen coil, and the 2 sheets of metal in the bottom of the box, we just chuck them in the garbage normally. Those are for downflow applications. So those 2 strips of metal go on either side of the coil in the pan. And what they are is splash guards ultimately. Okay, so one will sit on each side, it's just a splash guard. Okay, but we can do downflow applications with the Aspen coil it's approved for. Well, this would work, it doesn't have the approval, so if we were doing a downflow, I'd strongly suggest we use the Aspen simply because it has the approval rating for downflow. Now, there is something going on with coils that we'll get towards the end. I found a number, and I agree it's the OEM manufacturer, but I've seen some of my competitors show me photos of discolored, cracked, and disformed drain pans. We hadn't seen anything for a long time. 2 have come to our attention. So proactively, Airtek, we've actually brought in the new black drain pans. All the coils you're going to get today are all new drain pans inside. We brought in black drain pans, so if you've been buying units from Airtek, speak to your sales rep. We have a nice allowance. It's an Airtek allowance. We put the money away anyway, thankfully, and in this case, we can pay you a fair buck to go out and change the pan. We'd ask you to go out and look at it. If you do see it defective, take a picture. We'll give you a pan and we'll set you up. Okay, again, we've only seen 2 to date, but just proactively, we thought it better be safe than sorry, so we can kind of keep everyone happy. Okay, and again, before you leave, at the end, we'll actually take the pan out of this and we'll swap it for a black one, and you'll see it's really not difficult to do. I've done 3 in place, meaning the gas was connected. I didn't relieve any gas. I did it in place. Okay, so we'll show you how to do that. Okay, a little on surge protectors here. We believe in surge protectors. Based on my data, I've showed it to my boss and the tech team here, and we truly believe in these. When you go out and you buy a new TV, they generally sell you on a power bar with a built-in surge protector. We find that these really protect our unit. So when the lightning strikes, this gets the grunt of it, not my unit. Has anybody ever seen wires melted in the from the disconnect box or from the compressor, from the unit right to the compressor? One of these was on there, it wouldn't happen. Ants and disconnect boxes, you get an ant across both line 1 and line 2, and we get too much voltage and the component fries. This is sacrificial. This is about $90. We believe in it so much we're almost ready to add another year to warranty. So our warranty is 10 years when you register and buy the unit from Airtek. If your compressor fails in that period, we give you a new unit. Now that, well, let's kind of get into that a little bit. That's assuming you install it properly. So today we'll go over it requires a 3/4 line set. So 3/4 or larger would be okay, but if we went out and looked at it and you had a 5/8, or if you didn't use number 10 wire, you skimped on the wire and it wasn't a code, then ultimately we would give you a compressor. But if you've done everything properly and you have a compressor failure, we give you a brand new unit. A lot of people say that, we actually do it. Okay, but again, we do believe in these, and they're not hard to install. I'll just quickly show you. This one in particular, if you use a different one, you want to look at the instructions, but this is very easy to install. We have our line come from the box to a line. From here, we're going load, so we just connect to our load. So right where we're going from the disconnect box to the unit, we connect the same way. This will mount on the disconnect. They give us enough wire that we could even go, maybe 6 inches away. There's a clamp, so it is meant to be outside. What I like about it is there's a little green light on it, so when you pull the disconnect, you know the power's off. I actually caught a guy, he uses these religiously, and I don't know, hopefully it was just a one-off, but I pulled the disconnect and this was still lit up because he had it on the wrong side. It was on the line side. So. Okay, power. So power is a big one here. My 3-ton unit would require a 30 amp breaker and number 10 wire. Okay. Number 1, number 2 phone call I get is, oh, I'm doing it at my own house or doing it for a buddy, and there's only number 12 wire there on a 20 amp breaker. It's not right. It's going to fail electrical code, but we have done some testing. And this at 1.5 tons or 2 ton, we found it only pulls 16 amps even in heating. So that's unofficial testing, each to their own. Now, if you did something like that and the compressor failed, we'd hand you a compressor. We wouldn't give you a new unit. Keep that in mind. We really want to see things done properly. So number 10 with a 30 amp breaker. Okay, our 3.5 to 5 ton, we're looking for a 40 amp breaker with number 8 wire. Okay. Which one here? I'm going to bypass that. Clearances, just quickly over clearances. What's amazing about this unit is I can go 4 inches from the rear wall. Okay, any unit I've installed, I put too close to the wall. I was supposed to have 12 and I made it 8 or 6. So we can do that. Just keep in mind if you're doing that, we want to be able to see you get a hose behind the unit to clean it. Okay. A foot on either side. A foot's really important over here if we ever wanted to inspect a reversing valve. There's a door. This door comes right off, so we want a foot here 100%. Out the front, we need 40 inches. Be wary of chain link fences. Chain link fence in the summer is fine, but I have seen chain link fences turn into ice. Remember, this is cold air and water that's blowing. Depending on how close it is, I'm not a scientist by all means, but I have seen them freeze up. So just be careful of chain link fences. Okay? 40 inches is what we want to see the clearance. Now, if 2 of these units were together, it's a 12-speed motor, so if they were too close, one could ultimately burn the other one out on the first speed. Okay, so 40 inches is important. Now, we're working on getting baffles. So, for example, if you were putting this on a roof, I'd like to see you use a baffle, but I'd like to see the wind hit the coil side, not the fan side. So do a little bit of research. We put a baffle on, or I would suggest putting a baffle on, or if I couldn't make the clearance, for example, maybe there was too narrow of a townhouse complex. I haven't seen one that narrow yet, but it's possible. What it does is it'll reduce the clearance. So the 4 screws come off the grill that's existing. The new grill has got a flat front and it's open at the bottom, open at the top, so it's redirecting the air. Okay, so we don't want to say no, we can do that, okay? Above the unit, surprisingly, they want 40 inches. I don't know why. I've changed every component with 18 inches above, and most everything comes out here anyway. But keep in mind, if you're putting under a deck, it's not going to affect operation, but the code or the instruction manual says 40 inches above. I'm just putting that out there. All right, stands. Stands are really, really important, again, for noise especially. We'll get into line set lengths and what we've learned over the last year, okay, on how to make the unit quieter, be within the decibel rating that it should be. But I can't stress enough, put it on a stand. There's going to be a handful of days in the winter and it's on defrost when the unit can get a little louder than it should. Not necessarily should, but it's working. It's very cold outside. So mine at home in December, January was making some noise during defrost. It's quiet again now. Right, so on those cold days, it will happen. The units condensate, and this one's not on a stand. It's not why I'm showing you the picture, really. I'm showing you the picture to show you the amount of condensate here. So much so that I couldn't service my unit home in the winter time. Okay, that's normal operation. So if a unit's at the front of somebody's house, you might want to tell them, hey, this is not an air conditioner. It's going to work year-round. Somebody's going to slip and fall. I would go as far as writing on my invoice if they didn't want to move it. This is a possible slip and fall hazard customer to make revisions. Okay. Just tell them about it at least, and if they don't move it, they don't believe you. I'm going to show you how to do a pump down shortly. So we can do a pump down in the summertime and charge and we'll move it to the backyard. All right, there's always money to be made. As far as power into the unit, There isn't too many people here. I can have you come up. I'll pass the boards around first here anyway. This is my main control board here. So here's where I'm going to see fault codes. I'll just pass that around instead of pointing at the unit itself. Power comes into the unit just below the main board. You would assume that it's feeding the main board. It's not. What happens is this board here cleans and filters the power and converts it to DC. That board's actually right behind the main board, so that's placed right behind here. So again, it's not feeding the main board. It gets cleaned and filtered. It then goes to our drive board. So this board here, all its duty is to control the compressor. Okay. This board here, we'll get into it after. When we're changing this board, there is thermal paste required, and there's 4 screws that have to be properly inserted, tightened properly. We can't leave one screw out, otherwise we'll get a fault code on this, even if we just changed it. I'll get more into detail shortly, but that's our drive board. So all that does is controls the compressor. As you can see, the heat paste was on the back here. Before you leave, just to give you an idea why you need heat paste, have a look at the unit itself before you go today, and you'll see there's a heat sink to the right-hand side of the fan that's got to be 6x4. So the amount of heat this is producing is significant. Heat paste is required. I've seen guys do this, not use heat paste, and within an hour or two they call up with another code. So the unit works for an hour or so, and then they get a P8 code, I believe it is, and then it's temperature's an issue. They didn't put all the screws in, for example. This guy here is a connector board. You won't see this on the 5-ton, but the 3-ton seems to be the most common, so I really will focus on it. This is a connector board. All this board is actually doing, crazy but true, is there's 3 connections from the drive board. This converts it to 2 so it can plug back into our main board. That connector board, all it's doing is there's 3 connections on my drive board, and I want to reconnect to this board, but there's only 2 connections. So it's making 3 connections to 2. It's a connector board. Very rarely ever, actually I never have a problem with any of the boards, but I'm showing you just preventative maintenance. Okay, so again, power passes through everything like that. It doesn't go to the main board, it passes through everything so we get fault codes. So that's why it goes through everything first. It hits the drive board so it can detect faults. Okay, so it's not going right to the main board. Keep that in mind. It comes behind here first. It gets cleaned and filtered. Okay, forced operation. We're in the process of hooking this up. I'd say that by the next time you come out, we should have this ready to go. We're going to have some guys come by in the next week or two. We'll pipe it, and then we'll be able to power it up, and we'll be able to physically show you on the control board.
How are you?
In the meantime, I will send you this. I'll pull these slides and send them to you, okay? Forced operation. So if we were troubleshooting the unit, or if we just finished installing the unit, we wanted to show the customer, we wanted to test for ourselves, we don't have to run back and forth inside. We'll do it right from these 3 buttons here. So we don't have a contactor on this unit, but through these 3 buttons, I don't know if they're red or black on the main board I sent around, but they'll be red or black, okay? We can do pump down, we can do forced operation, whether it be cooling, heating, we can also do a defrost cycle. So we can do an awful lot. So we don't have a contactor, we can do more than what we could have done when we did have a contactor. So through these 3 buttons, 1, 2, 3. So 1 is at the bottom, 3 is at the top. We can get into cooling, heating mode. I'll walk you right through pump down. It seems to be the most popular. So again, this is where, let's say we had a leak, for example, or they didn't like the location of the unit. We can do pump down. Okay, so don't have to pull the contactor in, there isn't one. Cooling mode you can try, but you might go off on low pressure, so you may not get all the gas. So this is the best way to do it, okay? It's just like holding in the contactor like we used to. So through these 3 buttons, we're going to press and hold switch 1 for several seconds. Ultimately, this is going to start to flash, and you're going to go through until you see 08. Okay? Once you see 08, you can hit switch 2 or 3 to enter pump down mode. Then we hit switch 1. Unit's going to come on, it's going to be in pump down mode. What I'd ask you to do at that point is, you do have, it's not magic, we have to manually shut our 3/8 valve. You can either hook your gauges up, I'm able to go off sound, either way. Once all the gas gets back to the compressor, just like we used to, we're going to close off the other valve. Okay? At that point, in all honesty, I'm gonna ask you to turn the power off so the system shuts down. Okay, I don't have any other instruction on how to shut it off, so truthfully, just turn the power off, we can turn it back on again once it's moved.
So you can actually just hit the SW2 or 3 back to the off position.
Will it? Okay, very good, very good. So I couldn't get that far. I've done one, but I couldn't get it to shut off, so thank you. So you, instead of shutting the power off, you can actually go back into the menu. Thank you, buddy, it's good having you here. And hit switch 1 or 2, and you can get back in.
And then you just go to the off. And
Okay,
as long
so
as you
there'd
leave
be-
it there, it'll turn off.
Very good. Or just hit the power off, either one. But we can.
Or the.
Very good. Forced defrost is another one. So this is something really where I would encourage you to do a forced defrost after your installation, just to show the homeowner what to expect. There's wiring we'll get into, and at the beginning of this, I put one at my own house, so I'll share that experience as well. But we've got a defrost feature, so we could actually run another wire from the unit to the furnace. Okay, for defrost, so when defrost comes on, the furnace comes on. I was all for it. Unfortunately, if we stop and think about it, I mentioned defrost is 2-3 minutes. So the furnace gets the signal. Venter motor comes on. By the time the thing glows and ignites, it shuts off because my heat pump came back on again. So it really is in vain. And I'll tell you from having one at home that I smoke and watch it every day. So I'm watching it outside like this and my foot's at the register like this. It's not cold air, it's lukewarm air. It lasts 2 to 3 minutes. And it doesn't affect the thermostat even a half degree. So it's very minimal and it's not cold air. So I would say don't worry about the deal. I'll talk about it again when we get the wiring, but I wouldn't worry about running an extra wire for defrost. It's not necessary. Again, it's ineffective when you think about how long the furnace takes to kick on, and defrost only being in 3 minutes, you're doing it in vain. So defrost, again, it's not controlled by the thermostat, it's not controlled by a timer, it's done in real time on this machine, which is pretty cool. So there's 4 sensors. There's a heat exchanger temperature sensor, our outdoor sensor. This one is the one I showed you in the picture at the beginning where they had the vent pointed right at it. We want to be at least a foot away with our venting. Dryer vents as well in the back, a foot would be okay, but 3 feet would be ideal. If we had a dryer vent back there, just when you look out your window, when you walk by in the winter, all the snow's melted, it could cause issues with defrost, especially if it's encased at the rear of the unit, my sensor's right in the back. So try to stay 3 feet away from a dryer. Discharge temperature sensor, a low temperature sensor. So there's 4 in total. What's really cool is I've only ever seen one fail. And I got either an F2, an F3, or an F4 code. Okay, so F2, in case you can't see, is condenser temperature sensor error. F3 is outdoor ambient temperature sensor error. F4 is the discharge temperature sensor error. One of those sensors failed, so it gave me a code for which one had failed. However, my replacement part has got 3 all on one sensor, all on one. So it's one harness and all 3 connect to it. So it's kind of cool. When I see an F2, 3, or 4, it's very accurate. One of those sensors has failed. Again, I've only seen this happen once. Well, if it does fail, we could either take it off. So the plug, this is out of my service manual, by the way. I'm going to send this to everybody. But here I'm able to say it's cat number 14. Sensor right there. 2, 3, 4, I know exactly which sensors they are. So that is right here on the board. Right at the top here. So we could either take that out, ohm it out. We only have to find a problem with one of them. Again, they're all together on one harness, so that it's a fairly easy fix. We'll pull that off, and there's maybe 6 tie wraps, unfortunately. We have to go through and run each wire back again, but it's a simple fix. Has anybody installed any of these and had any problems at all? Okay, same thing, but what kind of problems have you experienced, out of curiosity? We're getting into line sets and so on and noise, so we're getting there, but I'd be interested.
First time I installed it, I forgot to open the smokes.
Okay, did you get an H4 code? Did you get a code? Did an H4 overload?
There was low pressure.
Okay, E3, that would be E3.
So then remember when I found it low pressure, what cylinder made the low.
You kept adding gas and then found out that you had one of the valves
I
closed?
had like 50 grams, the same, low pressure. What's going on? I had a little more, nothing changed, and I went inside.
Valves were closed. Right, okay, well, good, at least you figured it out. Very good, very good. Okay, something really cool about this unit, and it does set us apart from our competitors. We don't have to insulate the 3/8. No, and the reason for that is I've got a TX valve in the unit, and I've got another TX valve on my coil. So we have total control. Okay, a lot of our competitors don't have that. So much so I had a guy installing a unit across the street from a lady, and she had a different brand that had to be insulated. I had to send them a picture of this so that she could comprehend that it didn't have to be done. So this is a big deal for me because now I can reuse line sets. I don't have to fight insulation in the ceiling, and I don't have to insulate it. Okay, so that's a selling feature for us as the installer and the serviceman. What's really cool as well is 1.5 to 3 ton, 3.5 to 5 ton, it doesn't matter. It's 3/8, 3/4 for up to 100 feet of line set. We don't have to increase pipe size. So I've installed 5 tons before that were 1 1/8. You couldn't bend, you had to buy elbows. There was no choice. You couldn't bend it without kinking it. It was a disaster. It cost me a fortune. It was a nightmare. I can run 3/4 for 100 feet with this machine. Really, really nice. Now, when we add gas, we need, this is a little different than an air conditioner. We can't gas and go off pressures, okay? It's really off of the charge. So the unit comes pre-charged with 25 feet. If you use an Aspen coil, it's just nitrogen. But if you buy in the unit, 25 feet's in here, my case coil has another 6 feet. So now I've got 31-foot charge, okay? In actuality, you'll get away with 35 feet. So I'm going to say after 35 feet, we need a scale, and we need to weigh 0.32 ounces in. So if you remember your air conditioners from last summer, you used to add 0.6. So we're saving gas as well here. We're only using 0.32 ounces per foot more. Again, I would say at the 35-foot mark is where you're going to want to start adding this.
Same for removing?
Same, well, no, so removing, not necessarily. This is a smart unit, so we've learned a lot over the last year. The unit's been used in BC for 5 years previous to coming to our market. So about a year ago, we would have said, don't touch the gas, don't worry about it. What we've learned over the last 9 months to a year is that the line set should be 15 feet minimum. Minimum, not 7 feet, not 10 feet, 15 feet. Whether you curl it up in the ceiling somewhere like so, that's how we'd like to see it, but if you had to go beside it, either way, it needs to be 15 feet. This is for noise. I'd also like to see you take 5 ounces of gas out immediately. So if you can write that down, 15-foot minimum line set, whether it be that they're all the same. So if you're using the other, same thing. 15 feet minimum, pull 5 ounces out. To play it safe, if I was installing this and there was a 20-foot line set, I would take 2. I know it's not a lot, but I would take 2 ounces out. Okay, the reason for that is noise. And there's a code, you probably saw it that day, but it's an overload code. I think it's H4 overload. We'll get to it shortly and what to do in that case. But to avoid that, I would suggest that this unit will work all summer long. If we install it now, no problem. It's going to happen in heating mode. I got all the phone calls in October to December, kind of in that time frame. It was an H4 overload. The reason is the line set was too short. They didn't remove any gas. Okay, so.
You say there's nitrogen inside?
No, there's R410 refrigerant in here. There's nitrogen in here. So if you ever buy one of these coils, and I will say, if everybody's familiar with the HISS test, when you buy an Aspen coil from us, just pull off this little tab here and push the straighter. You should hear a good charge of gas. If you don't hear any gas, or if you don't think it's enough gas, you can return it to us, no question. So I'd say do that before you even leave. Okay, we'd rather see you, do it once and do it right and come back with a leaky coil. It's everybody involved doesn't help anybody. Okay, so again, I can't stress enough. We'll get into it more when we get into more service stuff or fault codes. You need a scale and you need a reclaim tank. It's very important. We can't go off pressures. I had a guy last week, he was at a job and he had the H4 code. I tell him to take 5 ounces out, and he says, I don't have a scale, I don't have a reclaim tank. So I didn't encourage it, but he's got his hose there and he's asking me, well, how long do you think 5 ounces is? I'm saying, holy shit. So, and that wasn't a good thing what he did. It was wrong on many levels, but here's the kicker. He doesn't know what he took out now. So come next summer, anyway, ultimately next season, he may have screwed the charge. You know what I'm saying? Weight is very, very important here. For example, if you had a leak and it was a large enough leak, we can't go by pressures. I'd tell you, all right, let's take all the gas out, let's weigh it all back in again. It's that critical with this. Okay, so everybody needs a reclaim tank and a scale. It's part of our job now. Now, with all the new gas coming, this kind of works too. Everybody's afraid, starting to become afraid to weld with the new gas that's flammable. Thankfully, we're not there yet with our unit, but it's coming. So we sell a 3/4 copper flexible connection off the top here. It's about $40. These are kind of what I wanted to show you. These are ProFit fittings. So there's a few different wholesalers selling these in Toronto. So they're not new. They've been used in the States for some time. What's really cool about this one, it's a pre-manufactured flare. It's a brass fitting. It's made to go right up to your flare. And you just pop, just like a shark bite for the water, you just pop your connection in. That we sell for about $20, just to give you an idea. No leaks. We haven't had any problems. Again, they've been used in the States for years. I don't know how long they've been in Canada, but we've been selling them all summer long. I sold those. I haven't had one person come back. I've been to some other wholesalers, and they have a big display at one, and they're selling them like they're going out of style. We just brought this in as well. We were at the show in Chicago. These are also, we don't have to solder, okay? And the reason we don't want you to solder is if we get a small little piece, this isn't an air conditioner where it's interconnected, where we can just go and blow everything out. I wish it was, but it's not. If I got a piece of debris stuck in here, worst case scenario, I'd be forcing the unit into operation, going through with a temperature probe, trying to find where that piece of dirt is stuck. So if you're a professional at welding and you're running nitrogen, go ahead, do what you're doing, but personally, I'm not. I'm using these fittings now myself. Mind you, I know how to make a flare, so if you can make a flare, and we'll get to that too, just make flares, but these are to make our lives easier. What I like about these, let me type these. These are another style of fitting that's braze-free ultimately. Why I like this in particular is we're still going to do ACs this summer, so the rebate, to my understanding, it's going to happen again in June. It's going to be used as an election tool, so we're going to be waiting a little while. So ACs are still going to be happening this summer. So most ACs are swedged, right? I'm already to the point where I don't have my torches anymore, so I'm not using my torch anymore. That fitting goes right over top of it. It's made for it. See how it was swedged, right? Taking this up with 2 wrenches. I'll do the same on the other end with my pipe. I didn't have to weld right off the unit. No, 3/8, 3/4. Did we bring 7/8? I'll ask Sagar in a minute. I know I have 3/4 and 3/8 because our units take it. We might have gone as far as bringing in 7/8 as well. I'll pass that around so you can play around, see how they work. These are going to be becoming more and more popular, including the press fittings. As this new refrigerant comes out, everybody's really scared to weld and afraid they're going to have some type of problem. So. Okay, flaring. It really is important. The units just leaks don't just happen. We need to know how to use a flaring tool. If you don't, I encourage you to practice on the weekend. I have this flaring tool here. Best flaring tool I've ever had. It's easy to find 3/4, 3/8, and when I get close, it just seems to pull right in. But it has a ratchet. The ratchet stops, so I don't over tighten it. It's the best flaring tool I think money can buy. However, I hear from all these guys coming to these classes all the time that they're having leaks and they're having leaks. I don't sell this. This is just to help you guys. I've seen this in action. I was in Ottawa, and what sold me on is he made a flare in like I don't know, in a space this size. And I'm saying, well, I could have done that with my flaring tool, but he did it very quickly and effectively, and the flare was perfect. This makes a perfect flare every time. I hear that's a good price, so if you ordered that today, you can probably have it tomorrow from Amazon. But that makes a perfect flare every time. Have you used that?
Seen it in action.
Okay, so I personally believe in this, but the amount of people that have this and the amount of people I hear with leaks, I strongly encourage your company to buy maybe one and pass it around, use it. But guys that are using this don't have leaks and they're very comfortable using it. Torque wrench. I happened to pick one up. I'm always a believer in over tightening and tightening. I was Mr. Pipe. My picture's really on the wall at Enbridge somewhere before they kept changing their name, Mr. Pipe. And I used to do probably 8 sets of flares a day. I never had a leak. I had one leak and I had a leak once, and it was outside. So I'd gone there on a service call actually because the lines were filling up with water because it kept going in and out of the building. Holy shit, many times anyway. So there was condensation, hot and cold, hot and cold. So I got this guy here. We actually had to decipher this in the manual. They did it in, I don't know, joules or something. It was odd, right on. Anyway, 3/8, we want to be 29 foot-pounds. 3/4, 55 foot-pounds. So what this is a guide. This way we're not over tightening. Okay, when I get to 55 foot-pounds, I'm tight and I'm good to go. I strongly suggest you buy one of these. It's not just for our gree unit, it's for all heat pumps now, they're all flare. And ductless units, the gree ductless, and every ductless I know of is a flare, so it can benefit you all around. We don't sell it right now, we're looking for one. If you're looking to buy one, honestly, a guy that was in the class told me about this. So this one's Yellow Jacket, I'll pass it around by all means. That's the part number, by Airtek, and I'm told Airtek is close. I haven't been there, but he told me it was like 10 minutes away, so he went and got it, I paid him for it. He got that for $259 or $269 plus tax. That's a smoking deal. I looked around for a while, I'm a cheap guy, and that's the best price I could find on it. If you're gonna buy one of these, buy the Yellow Jacket, the Hilmar, or the Nuvac. Otherwise, it won't fit the 3/4 nut. Okay, so it's important that you get a good one. I cheaped out initially, and I bought one from China thinking I was a genius, and I can only do the 3/8 side. It won't fit the 3/4.
This one is 50.
This one is, honestly, take a picture of the part number. I'd encourage you to go to Airtek and pick it up. Their price is the best on it right now. Okay, but this, again, this is like when I come to on the first job site visit with you, I'll probably have my laptop, okay, to set it up, and you'll hear the customer, "Oh, he knows a whole," they think very highly of that laptop. I'll tell you, it takes me to another level. Having a tool like this where it vibrates and lights up when it's tight, somebody's watching you, it takes you to another level too. They've never seen anybody use this before. They're interested, right? Again, it takes you up a little bit. But it also gives you peace of mind that you're not gonna have a leak. Okay, and again, the one leak I had, it was back when I was over tightening things. If I had this, I wouldn't have had that problem. So it was outside and it was temperature that caused the leak. So think about it for a sec. This is heating to 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside in freezing temperatures. The potential's there for a crack, right? So more reason to use this. We don't want to see any of this stuff. So if your flare is bad, it's going to leak. None of this is, it's a Band-Aid solution. It's going to be a problem, and you've got the potential now of contaminating the unit. And we don't want to contaminate this unit again. If we went around, we'd have to force operation, worst case, and go through with a temperature probe to try and find where there was a piece of debris stuck. It would be very tedious. I'd consider resigning it. It could be a hell of a job, honestly. So we don't want to see any of this crap, please. If you really want to use something as a sealant on your flare, the only thing we'd suggest would be PV oil. Now, it's funny because Sauger picked up a jug of this, and it was $80 or $90.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I think it's a waste personally, but we bought it just to try it out, right? But this is all we want to see. None of this stuff at all. So if you really think, you want some sealant on your flare, just PV oil and that's it. Filter dryers, we don't want them. I'm not the police, so on the next slide, I make a little say, if you really want to have it, you can have it. Okay, it's your job, not mine, but myself, as well as Gree the factory, says don't do it. There's filters built into this unit already, before and after major components. We feel this could be too much restriction. Okay, but again, I'm not the police, and it's your job. If you think you need one, by all means, and if it comes to it, eventually we might tell you to take it off. Okay? However, is anybody reusing line sets with air conditioners? I'm sure we are. Heat pumps would be great to run a new line every time, but again, we don't always have that capability. So reuse line, you can reuse a line set, that's fine. I personally only use nitrogen. When the transition from R22 to R410 happened, I was at a counter, and anyway, I called all the different manufacturers, Yellow Jacket, JB, and they told me, listen, it doesn't matter. Such a small fraction of an amount, it doesn't matter. So that being the case, nitrogen has been great for me. If you were using chemicals, that's fine. Continue doing what you're doing, but you can reuse a line set is all I'm trying to stress here. We can reuse a line set. We want the line set to be 3/4, 3/8, or larger. Nothing smaller, okay? Again, smaller would work on a 1.5 ton, 2 ton, but it would affect your warranty. So the only time I'd ever want to see 5/8 would be if the unit was in 1.5 ton or 2 ton mode and your line set was about 20 feet. Better off to just change it in just 3/4 and your warranty's intact. Okay, you can reuse a line set. If you're going as far as doing an acid test after, good for you, but you can reuse a line set. Vacuuming. We want to see you get down to 400 microns. I'm not the police. I know we all have bad days. Maybe our tool broke. Maybe we lost it. If for some reason you didn't have a micron job and you're installing one of these, set it up, run it, and go for lunch. An hour, hour and a half would be an awesome thing, okay? A micron gauge is the way to go. That's the preferred method, but I'm not the police, and I'm normal too. I do installations too, and I know that sometimes we either don't know how to use it, or the last guy filled it up with oil and it doesn't work anymore. So hour, hour and a half, hook it up, go for lunch. All you're doing is doing a better job for your homeowner. Okay, but we'd really like to see you hook your micron gauge up about 400 micron. In the manual, I was kind of surprised. It tells me that for this unit, I should vacuum for 35 minutes. I don't know how they get it based on time. And on the 4 or 5 ton model, 45 minutes. I thought that was strange. But what you do need to know is, again, these are not interconnected. So when you're doing a vacuum, we can't just vacuum like we used to off the 3/8 only. We need to do them separately, or we can put a T and do them together, but these are not connected. So when you're doing your vacuum, remember to do both sides. Okay, I just don't see anybody freaking out, but I had one guy, and he had no idea, and he'd been installing it for who knows for how long. I'm thinking, holy shit, right? Yeah, hopefully he didn't buy my unit. Oh, God. What thermostats are you guys using right now? Ecobee? Okay, so Ecobee is our preferred thermostat. It seems to be trouble-free. Their tech support is second to none as well. You can get them at 9, 10 o'clock. A little tip, if you do get through, 9 of them are good. The one person is crap on the tech support, so if you get a crappy guy, my advice to you is just end the call somehow, and then call back in and start a fresh call. It's the best, otherwise you're stuck with an idiot, unfortunately. I mean, most of them are really good, but occasionally you get somebody who has no idea. He's the beginner guy that, I guess he's filling in, he's got the homeowner line, and he's doing the tech line anyway. Hang up, call back in again, save yourself a lot of time. You can use the older style thermostats. It's hard to see, but there is emergency heat here and here. Problem with that is now you're gonna have to run an outdoor temperature sensor. So you've got more wiring, and the setup on these is a little more involved. It's not quick and easy like this. You're going through a little menu of maybe 30, 40 parameters that you have to set. So it's not fun, but you can do it. So these will work. There's just more work involved. Okay, big thing is you have to buy a temperature sensor and get it to the outside. That's why we encourage the Ecobee. Now, we just recently brought in the Invita. It's made by Tekmar. Tekmar specializes in boiler controls. It's a really nice thermostat. I wouldn't go and change out somebody's Ecobee and put the Tekmar or the Invita, but if somebody didn't have Wi-Fi, I have an Ecobee, and you had trouble running the wires. So this, actually, we can run 2 wires, or the existing 2 wires that work a heat pump. So from the thermostat to the basement, 2 wires are required. Everybody has 2 wires, right? So that's cool. Now outside, to the outside, we still have to run our 4 wires. It's not magic, or you can buy another wire transmitter for that, but it's pretty nice. Now what's nice is, forget about a heat pump for a minute. Let's say you're installing a humidifier, or an ERV or an HRV, new house kind of a thing, okay? That thermostat, even with just 2 wires, will control one of them. So you could choose the humidifier, the ERV, or the HRV, and they have control upstairs. So there are some benefits to it, heat pump, even without, if we're just doing it on a regular furnace or regular installation. Keep in mind, I love the Ecobee, but right now, to do that with the Ecobee, I'd have to run wires all the way upstairs. Unlikely I'm gonna do that, so the Invita is, we're selling a lot of them. Okay, here's my wiring diagram for the Ecobee with our machine, okay? Now, if you'll notice, my furnace from my thermostat, I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires. Reason I did it like this is a lot of furnaces don't have B. Okay, and there's some furnaces that we have to cut or do jumpers on the control board to activate B properly or control B. So my advice to you is don't even use B. If you've already taken it to the furnace, or if it's already on a tap, just mirror them together. Forget about B on the furnace altogether. What I did in this case is I ran 5 wires to the furnace, from the thermostat, and then from the thermostat, this may save you some wiring or a fast stack perhaps, B to right to the outdoor unit. That might save you a wire saver one day doing it like I did. It depends on where everything's placed, I know, but keep in mind I didn't have to pay extra money and use that fast out. I was able to run the wire. So I did it with the Ecobee 1 package. Now D, we talked a little about D, so it is possible to run D to W. So D is for defrost. W, obviously, on our furnace will bring our heat on. So that is doable, however, it's not realistic. Again, my defrost is 2-3 minutes. So think about it. You get the unit gets the call, so from D it gets the call to W, the ventral motor comes on, checks the pressure switch, then it lights up. It might not even ignite before my heat pump comes back on. right? If so, it might have run for 1 minute if I was lucky, right? So there's no point.
Is it actually 3-4 minutes?
It is, it's a very short defrost time. Okay, but defrosting, it could happen, 2-3 times in an hour, depending on how cold it is. Right, so I personally, again, based on my own experience, it's lukewarm air, it's not cold air. It's 2-3 minutes, it's not gonna adjust the temperature of housing by half a degree. Okay, but you can do it if you feel you wanna do it, by all means. Run your extra wire D, just connect it to W. Okay, and then you've got total control. What outdoor temperature are you guys setting your Ecobee up to switch over to the furnace at? Anybody?
It's still 2 degrees.
2, okay, so -5 is the magic number. If somebody was to call me and say, I'll go -5. The unit works to -30. Okay, keep that in mind Celsius. At home, I'll tell you a little about my experience. So my house, and I had to learn throughout all this. Okay, we're all learning right now. So my house built in 1980. The house is 1,800 square feet, maybe 1,900 square feet. Okay, I have a 60,000 furnace in there now. My air conditioner was 2-ton. So I put the 2-ton, I put this unit in and I set it up as 2-ton. Okay, I did this in October, so I didn't really use the air conditioning. But I didn't connect my furnace again either, so I just was relying on the heat pump. It's still today, my furnace isn't connected. It's only being used as an air handler for testing purposes. So, I don't know, about December, so my grandma's in the basement, and my kids too, so they were pissed. Oh my God, they're like, listen, it's not warm in here, it's uncomfortable, and the grandmother, her window's right outside the unit, and it's ramping up and down all the time. Shit, what am I gonna do here, right? Really, so I thought about it and said, my furnace is a 60. It's capable of moving 3 tons of cooling. So I ran outside, watched I didn't slip because it was icy, and I set the unit to 3-ton. Remember, it's a variable speed compressor, so it's going to be fine in the summertime. It's not going to ice up, it's not going to freeze up. My unit is capable and moves 3 tons of cooling already. So now, instead of having 24,000 BT heating my house, I've got 36,000. Okay, and I put it in strong mode as well. I'll encourage you to use strong mode when we set dip switches. What strong mode does is instead of ramping up and down, it actually goes on 100%. But because it's not ramping up and down, it's quiet. I also now get 100% of the heating. I actually got a couple more degrees, so I was getting around 100, now I'm getting 102, 103, so it even got warmer. My mother says, wow, it's quiet. My son says it's comfortable. I can hit 22, 23 degrees, in January, February temperatures. So I'm pretty happy with it now. So after I did that, after I'm happy now, as things are good, I did a heat loss calculation. Remember, my house was built in 1980. It's about 1,800 square feet. Well, guess what? My house called for a 4-ton heat pump. So we kind of have to stop and think and say, well, shit, I only had a 60,000 furnace. I didn't have dual return air or bottom return air for a 4-ton. You know what I'm saying? My ductwork was probably too small, so I had to adapt the best I could. So what I'm ultimately saying here is max this out for heating. It's a variable speed compressor, so in the summertime we're not going to have problems. It's, your furnace, if you've got at least a 60, you can move 3 tons, no problem. So we're really concerned about heat at this point. We want to make the customer happy. They want to use their heat pump, and they expect it to be like their furnace. It's not going to be, but in strong mode and maxed out, it's going to be as close as it possibly can to keep them comfortable. And again, the difference in my house was night and day when I switched it over. Dip switches, here we are. So big deal here. It's upside down. Best unit money can buy, I truly believe that. However, the dip switches are upside down. We had a guy from the factory here watching one day, or somebody reports to the factory, and he didn't think it was an issue. This place was packed. Turned my computer upside down, everybody was scratching their heads, and they finally agreed that they're going to try and revise this for us on the next edition. But it can get confusing, so really it seems easy, but just take a minute. This is generally the end of the day, and the customer is asking if you're finished yet. You're telling the helper to clean up, everybody wants to leave, but this is important. Most important thing in the job. What I'd suggest you do is turn the power off when you're setting the dip switches, okay? I had a guy set the dip switches with the power on. And, if you don't recycle the power, it won't take effect. So unless the power failed, it wouldn't have taken effect. So your best bet is just turn the power off, we'll set the dip switches, okay? Okay, so if you disconnect, pull it, shut the switch off, whatever it is, turn it off. Dip switch 1, keep in mind it's backwards, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not like a book, it's upside down. Dip switch 1 is our tonnage. So if I wanted the unit to be 2 ton, dip switch 1 would be in the off position. If I wanted the unit to be 3 ton, dip switch 1 would be in the on position. Remember, it's upside down, so this is actually going to be up on the board. And what I'll do, there's not a lot of guys, so I'll bring you up in a second, and I'll say, hey, pick one of these, and we'll set it together just so you get an idea of what it's involved. Dip switch 2 is the most important dip switch. If you've installed some other brand, did you get any phone calls about problems in the wintertime with it icing up and making noise? Yes? Okay. Okay, yeah, they're always far away too, yeah. So dip switch 2 out of the box is set standard default. So wherever, maybe in China that'll work, but here it doesn't, okay? Our climates are much colder. Have to set strong defrost. If it was only one thing you were gonna do, I'd say this is the most important thing here. So it's gotta be in strong defrost, and if it isn't, I promise you, I'll bet money right now, but you're gonna get a call next winter, and it's gonna look like that, okay? What happens when it isn't set properly is now the fan's going and going and going and fighting a big chunk of ice. Eventually your fan's gonna burn up, we're gonna get an H6 code for the fan. Okay, and if it doesn't happen right away, the fan gets weakened from this, and then a month later, you'll be back changing the fan. So all I can tell you is set dip switch 2 every time. Dip switch 2, so if you're going back to jobs, for summer maintenance or service calls, check the dip switches every time. Dip switch 2's gotta be in the off position. It's got to be.
Thank you.
The biggest phone call I got all winter, and you go and you find out it's just that switch that caused it. Okay, the unit out of the box comes standard mode. I encourage you to ultimately choose 2 ton or 3 ton and max it out, meaning strong mode. Okay, and we'll do that in a minute. 1.5 tons or a 2.5 ton. So let's say I wanted to make the unit 2.5 for whatever reason, okay? I'm gonna select 3 ton. I'm going to do my strong defrost, and I'm going to select energy savings mode. This is how I get my 1/2 ton, okay? But again, for day-to-day installations, to simulate the furnace experience for somebody, I'm going to suggest we max out the unit at 3 ton in most cases, and we use strong mode. So if you want to stand up, we'll just set up one here on here just for comfort levels. So anybody, what size do you want to set it up as? It could be a 1.5 tons right through to a 3 ton. 2.5. All right, let's do 2.5. Okay, so I'm going to set it for 3 ton. So dip switch 1, I'm going to put in the on position. Crazy but true, on is down. Okay, and you'll see on the board it's upside down writing, but it does say on there. Okay. Dip switch 2 is going to be in the off position. Off is up on the control board. Okay. And we wanted to do a 1/2 ton. So we're gonna make it a 2.5, so we're gonna select energy saving mode.
You said number 2 is for strong defrost.
Strong defrost, yes, yes.
Should be on.
Strong defrost. It's going to be in the off position.
Off position?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm saying, call me on one and we'll go and do it together, but you maybe wanna take a picture after this one too. Okay, energy saving mode, so dip switch 3 is going to be off. 4 is going to be on. So I've set that up now as a 2.5 ton in strong defrost. Okay, now when you're finished your installation, we want to see the temperature above the coil. You can even go to some registers and check it out. You're generally going to see between 94 and 104. If you're at 94 and you call me, I'm going to say, hey, maybe we should just add a little more gas in there and say, let's add 4 or 5 ounces. But you're still within range, okay, at 94, but 100 is generally what I see. At my house right now, I'm getting 102, 103 above the coil. That's ultimately ideal. That's what you want to see. Okay, it doesn't get much better than that. Okay. If you really want to check, for pressures and so on, this was one I was at with a guy and we had to add some gas, so it's a little low here, but you want to be at about 450. If you really want to check, you can throw the one side on and just see if you're at about 450. Okay, run the unit, before you do this, run the unit for about 30 minutes. Okay, so the coil gets hot enough. And again, you should see 100 degrees Fahrenheit, very close to it. Okay, if you were at the 94 mark, by all means call me, but if you did have 94 and it was half an hour, I'd say, let's see what we can do here, and I'd ask you to dump in 4 or 5 ounces to see if that had effect. It generally does. Okay. Bad picture, but normal operation, you're going to get frost on the coil. It's going to look like it snowed just on the machine only. It's not frozen up. This is normal operation. If you wait long enough, you'll see the unit come into defrost or go into defrost, and you'll see the coil come back that it looks normal. Okay. Another little cool thing is this unit, I have never seen this before in a residential unit. Again, this is classified commercial. If the house was ever on fire, it exceeds this rating of pressure and temperature, this will actually blow off all the refrigerant in the unit to the outdoor cabin. That was kind of funny. A guy was in the training class, I believe. But anyway, he called me a couple days later for help at a job. Got out of his truck. The unit was in defrost. He didn't know that. Okay. So at some points when I'm outside smoking on the window, I'll hear the unit going defrost. And when it's cold out, it'll almost sound like someone runs over and throws a bucket of water on something hot. And then you get all this steam. Right, so that's what he saw, and he's in his car going, "Holy shit, all the refrigerant dumped out, what are we going to do?" Right, and I'm saying, no, man, it was in defrost, that's normal. But these are the things that we learned that nobody tells us. They're quiet, so it is quiet, it's the most quiet one you can get, but in all honesty, in defrost, it can make a little bit of noise, and you will get some steam, so it could look like Halloween at points, in all honesty. What we'll do is we'll take a little break and then we'll finish her up. We're going to get into common fault codes, okay? And I'll show you how to test the compressor as well. Also on a leak, on an E3 code, I'll also, I've had arguments before, and believe it or not, the customer's right, they didn't have a leak, so we're going to get into detail on how to test the low pressure switch, so we either find out if you have a leak or not. Okay, we'll give it 5 minutes and we'll come back and we'll do that. Don't be here too long, guys. While everybody checks back, I'm just going to do a quick video on about the compressor. It's too much information for me. I'm an installer serviceman, so I'm only concerned about where I need to test it. But if you want to know a little about how the compressor works, by all means, here we go.
Hello, Rick runs with Green. How does an inverter-driven compressor work? Diagram shown here helps give a simple explanation to that very question. High voltage powers bridge rectifier that forces alternating current to flow in one direction, creating DC voltage. Then the capacitors on the inverter charge and discharge the effect peak, boosting the voltage referred to as high
This is
DC
my drive
bus
board controlling this ultimately.
This high DC bus voltage can be measured in any inverter. This voltage on 230 volt unit be before then 3 volts DC. Then for with DC bus, the voltage is fed through bags and heat sinks, insulated gate bipolar transistor, effectively expressed heat. The voltage passes through the IGBT to the compressor winding terminals W, U, and V. The IGBT switches work in pairs. For example, power comes from P through the IGBT to the compressor wire W and completes the circuit flowing through the compressor winding to U, through the diode to N. At the end of that switch cycle, then the power comes from N through the IGBT to U, completes the circuit through the compressor winding to V, through the diode to P. The IGBT will rotate the power through the IGBTs to W, U, and V from both positive and the negative side of the DC bus, effectively creating and controlling its own electrical sine wave. The speed at which this happens is the hertz, allowing the main board to control the speed at which the compressor runs. This is what makes the compressor variable speed. The speed at which the compressor runs is determined by the main board programming and input from the thermistors, pressure sensors, and other components within the system.
My whole thing there is you saw the terminals for the U, V, and W, I think. That's all. I'll pass it around again, but that's all I'll get you to check the compressor if I ever have you on the telephone, okay? Here, this is a big one. So when you call me during the day, I'm always available. I try to be at night as much as possible. I'm going to say call me, don't text me. better chance you get a hold of me, especially if I am on my bike and it's after hours. Generally on the guy's first install, this happens. The reason I say do this is, you know, if I have time, I'm gonna help you with the thermostat, but I may not, so I might redirect you to Ecobee, okay? So to determine if it's a Scott or a Gree problem or a thermostat or a wiring issue right off the hop, I'm gonna ask that you check your call for heat. At this time of the year, it's in heating, we're turning it on. So I'm gonna ask you to turn the thermostat to heat, run outside, check your terminal here, tell me if you've got 24 volts at Y and C. Tell me if you've got 24 volts at B and C. If you do, then that's a real call for heat. And at that point, if there was a problem with the unit, we generally see a fault code. Okay, but that's the point where I take over and can help you, okay? But I need to see, you need to have a proper call for heat is what I'm trying to get at, okay? Or a proper call for cool. So what's nice is cool, I only need to see 24 volts at Y and C, meaning we can install this unit for cooling only with just 2 wires, okay? But 24 volts, I really mean 24 volts, so it's gotta be 24 volts or more. You'll generally see 24 to 27 volts. If you had 18 volts, or a guy was telling me 11 volts, you've got a wiring problem, maybe you have a broken wire. I mean, I can't assume, but there's a problem with your wiring. I need a real 24 volts at Y and C if the unit's in cool, or a real 24 volts at Y and C and B and C.
Can you force it from here or you have to set?
So I can do forced operation, but this is at the point where you're installing the unit, you want it to work and you want to leave, right? So you've put the unit on for heat and you're saying, shit, it's not working. So before I can help you, I want to know, are you really getting, have you done it properly? Is the, you know, are you actually, a lot of people have problems with their first Ecobee setup. It just is a common thing, right? So that's why I'm saying, make sure you have this. But yeah, you could do forced operation without the thermostat by going through these buttons. But if you want to leave the house and give them operation, no, right? So all I'm saying is before you call me, please make sure you have the right voltage. Okay, so you have a call for heat, there you go. You have a call for cooling, there you go. Under 24 volts, there's a problem. Here's my fault codes. They're very, very accurate. We don't get many phone calls. It's myself and Sauger that do take the calls. There's 27 fault codes total. They're going to appear right here. Okay, so when you first turn the unit on, you'll see 2 zeros. When it gets a call for heat or cool, it'll actually say ON for on. Okay? Okay, we're almost at fault codes. Reversing valve, unfortunately, there isn't a code for the reversing valve, but if there was, and I have never had a problem myself personally. Another note, something to make note of, is in BC, they've never had this assembly fail. So they've been selling the unit for 6 years now. We've had it in this market for a year. But if you were going to have a problem with this, which I have not seen even one, but everybody's excited about the reversing valve and worried about it, so we'll cover it. If there was a problem with this, the customer's going to tell you, it'd be the winter time most, and they're going to say, well, it's lukewarm air. So instead of getting the 100 degrees Fahrenheit we talked about, they might be getting 75 or less. So they're going to notice a difference. It's going to be warm, but it's not going to be warm enough. I generally hear the term lukewarm. Okay, so that'll be the symptom of this. So to check, it's really easy. It's not rocket science at all. We're going to put the unit in heat. We're going to take the top off so we can access this. You need a magnetic screwdriver or something magnetic, well-insulated magnetic screwdriver would be my suggestion. You're going to put the screwdriver on the top right here. You're just going to touch it to the top of the solenoid, okay? If it magnetizes, it's good. To further check, you can unscrew it, and you'll feel it get warm in your hand, and you'll feel it humming in your hand. That's a sign of a good working solenoid, okay? If it wasn't humming, if it wasn't getting warm, if it didn't magnetize, that's our problem. Okay, that's really it for troubleshooting this thing, so it either works or it doesn't. To change it, it's not hard at all. Again, I've never had to change one. I had a guy fool me, I don't know, probably 9 months ago. He didn't wire his thermostat properly. That's why I go over the voltages we need at the thermostat. So I thought it was this, and I brought one of these with me. Anyway, it wasn't. It was his wiring. Okay? However, one screw, and I think it's 3 or 4 tie wraps. You cut it, and it comes into, just so I'm not lying here, the purple wire connects to the board right there, so it's a real easy fix if we had that problem. Again, I never have had it before, but everybody seems to ask when they're calling, oh, is the reversing valve working? We haven't had a problem with it, but that's how you fix it. Okay, so the customer's going to say, hey, my air is lukewarm. At which point it's a really easy task. We go and make sure it magnetizes. Magnetizes, it's good. If it doesn't magnetize, you can come on in here and we'll have one for you. We've got a box that's going to last us 10 years or more. Okay? All right, this is, I don't know, one of the most common anyway. We're going through all the common fault codes. So E3 is a very common fault code I get. And I've been to jobs, my boss sends me with a bigger customer, and he says, the guy said we sold him a piece of crap and it's leaking. I go there and it's not my unit. The guy's got a leak here, or on the outdoor unit it's flare. Okay, and it happens, it could happen to anybody, nobody's mad about it. We treat it as a learning experience for everyone, okay? But I had one call and it drove me crazy. I had this guy and he was an arrogant SOB. He was Mr. Perfect. And he says, I don't have leaks. I don't have a leak. And I've checked and I don't have a leak. And I said, well, why does it say E3, man? You've got a leak. So we battled at it. It took 2 days to resolve this issue. So we argued and argued enough. I even gave him a control board. And I'll get into that shortly what happened with that. That was an awesome experience too. He's still telling me he doesn't have a leak day 2 now. So I say, all right, but you know what? Check the low pressure switch for me. There it is there. It plugs in right here. Okay, so you don't have to physically take the top off to get to it. What I will say is you're going to need good leads on your meter that are small enough to get in those openings. Otherwise, unfortunately, mine aren't that small, so I'll take the top off and check. Either way, we just ohm it out. We can just do a continuity test. You can even do the little beep noise. If it beeps, this is good. If it doesn't beep, it's bad. It's pretty simplistic, okay? So if you get 0 on your meter, it's good. If anything, any other number is going to be bad. Anyway, believe it or not, I was shocked. I've only seen it once. The switch was bad. No shit. So I had to apologize to Mr. Perfect anyway, and I told him he could come in and get the switch. He opted not to. He jumped it out. Now, if it was a high pressure switch, we would have insisted that it was changed, but it was a low pressure switch. And if you see where this gets installed, I'm not a welding pro by all means, but this is what we give you. You got to sweat that off and then sweat it in again without filling that opening. That would be a challenge for me personally, so I understand why he jumped it. But again, if it was a high pressure switch, we wouldn't do something like that. Okay, so we're realistic, we want to help you. We're not always right either. So in this case, he was right and I was wrong. It was a bad switch. He didn't have a leak. Okay, so we all learned something that day. So if you ever do think that if you've checked and you're certain you don't have a leak, check this out. Let us know. I don't want to see too, but we record these things so we can let other people know. E3, generally that's what it is. It's a new, well, not generally what it is, I shouldn't say. Generally it's a leak. But if it wasn't a leak, this could have been what you had. E3, you said you'd had low pressure when you had that problem. So it also could be maybe we forgot because we're not used to having valves inside. Maybe we didn't open the valves or maybe we didn't open them fully. So when you're on the phone with me, you're going to say, well, I already did. I'm going to ask you, can you just go and check? Make sure that they're all the way open and all the way open. Okay, believe it or not, that will solve the problem in a lot of cases. We don't always open them up. Another thing when we're talking about these valves is that stupid yellow jacket thing that everybody has is not the be-all, end-all. I threw mine out. I can never find it anyway. I got a real set of Allen keys, and I was always taught that it's cracking the valves. So I'll put my Allen key in full-sized. That little one, the yellow jacket one with the ratchet. I've seen so many people strip valves that I personally don't use it. So I would advise everybody go out, get a real set of Allen keys, and it's not supposed to be easy. It's called cracking the valves for a reason. I remember old carrier units, and I used to have to get a pipe wrench or an adjustable wrench to crack it, right? But I don't think that yellow jacket tool, I love yellow jacket, but I don't think that's a great tool for us to be using. I really don't. I think a real Allen key set is, we're not going to damage anything. Okay, I've seen so many damages. I've worked at other places. I've been doing this over 25 years. Anyway, I see, when a guy comes back with a valve that's a problem, I know very well that he didn't put heat paste on it. Here, I don't have to worry about that because it's flares, but I've seen a lot of things, you know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm assuming you would call before you call for this, but the outdoor fan isn't working properly, so maybe our fan isn't moving enough air. That could be another possibility for E3, right? Maybe we're getting some ice buildup. Okay, all the common things from air conditioning, but ultimately, because it's new to you, don't forget to check here. Okay? Refrigerant inefficient. It's going to be I haven't had anybody call me with that yet. Generally, he's got a leak. Okay? But it very well could be you don't have enough gas, and maybe it is a 40-foot line set and you didn't add gas, right? So again, you can call us. We will help you. Pipeline blocked. Well, then we're in really, really big trouble. Then it sounds to me like you're welding and didn't know what you were doing and have contaminated the system. So that's scary if we end up having a blockage in this case. Okay. Again, remember, It's not an open loop. So we can't just blow all the shit out that we contaminate the system with. So we really have to be careful when we're installing this. Right? I personally don't think welding is a good idea at all. H4 overload, this is the biggest, this is the most call. So this ties into the line set size. This is how we determine that you need the 15-foot line set, and this is why you pull 5 ounces out even if the line set's 15 feet. Again, even at 20 feet, I know it's a small amount, but I would pull out 2 ounces. I know it's piss all, but I really would, knowing what I know, take 2 ounces out on 20 feet. 15 feet minimum, and the reason for that is noise. So when we're entering the building with the pipe, I'd like to see an inch or a 2-inch hole, opening, space around the pipe. I don't want it touching wood or touching the brick. It should be a wide open hole. When we're strapping the pipe inside, this is a big one. Instead of strapping tight like we used to the joist with an air conditioner, remember when this goes in defrost, there's a lot of different vibrations. So it's better to use a U-shaped strap. Let the pipe sit in the strap. Let the strap do its job and hold the pipe, opposed to forcing it up to the joist. We want there to be we want it to be loose. We want the pipe to sit in the hanger. Okay, I had an experience. The reason I make that so important is I went to a job. When the lady did her dishes, she said that the whole floor would vibrate and it was crazy. So I get there with the guy and we're standing there. We both didn't see anything. She goes, "Yeah." She laughed or something. She stood at her kitchen sink and the tile vibrated. Holy shit. So we went downstairs and restrapped everything, but stay away from duct work as well with the line set. You don't want to strap it to that because it's going to carry noise again. So really, really important, that 15 feet, watching where you're strapping, what you're strapping to.
So was that the only reason for an overload, really?
You've got too much gas.
Too much
That's the gist of it, yes. There's too much gas. Okay, H5, I don't see this very often at all. What I did find funny in the manual, this is a problem with our drive board. Okay, so it's funny in the manual itself, it says we'll change the drive board. And then after you do all that, well, maybe the compressor's damaged. So I'm going to ask if you call me on this, or if you do see an H5, we're going to check the compressor first. Where'd that drive board end up? Okay. This guy here. Okay, so the drive board. So you get an H5 code, give me a call, or just before you change the drive board, because there's a lot of work involved. We have to put our heat paste on.
Okay.
We have to put 4 screws in, and it's in a tedious spot, okay? We're going to ask you to check the compressor. Just these 3 terminals, again, we'll take these off, and they're easy to pull off. Once you get the top off, you can do it pretty easy, okay? I'm going to ask you to check on the wires that connect to this, that we have the same value. I believe the value is 9 is from what I'm hearing most often. We should get a 9, whether it be U, W, or VU, no matter what combination, I'm going to see a 9. You're going to disconnect them. You got it. No, measure the wires to the compressor. So we're measuring the compressor. Instead of trying to get the compressor, we'll do it here. So ultimately, on those 3 wires, no matter how you measure them, you're going to see a 9. If you've got a different value, then there's a problem with the compressor. Call me on that and we'll just confirm, okay? But there'd be a problem with the compressor. So I wouldn't want to give you a drive board to find out that we already know the compressor's damaged. Okay, so that's something that the book doesn't really tell us properly. So I'd ask that you just check the compressor before you do change a drive board. Okay? DC fan. So this ties back into the only time I've seen it happen is when defrost wasn't set up properly. So the guy goes back and defrosts it, and anyway ends up maybe a week, 2 weeks later, the fan was weakened. It seems to burn out. So very important. Dip switch 2 is going to avoid you a service call, and you won't have to change your fan. It's not a hard thing to change the fan. You can do it right through the front grill here, but set the unit up properly, avoid the customer inconvenience, save yourself the money and the time. I'll show you them if you want to see. We're going to put them back in the same spot again. Correct, yeah, what I would suggest is just take a picture, they're color coded on there. Okay? But again, same value. If you had a lower value, the compressor's damaged. So don't change this. When we do see H6, we're going to see H6 right here. It's great on the 5-ton model because you'll see one fan spinning and the other fan not spinning. It's a dead giveaway. Okay. We can ohm out the fan as well. However, I'll have to get you values on that. We're not gonna see a zero. There's actual value in the service manual. I haven't pulled up, there's an actual value. But at the same time, when we're getting an H6 and the fan isn't spinning, it's a dead giveaway. But to further confirm, give me a call and I'll tell you what voltages to look for when we ohm it out, what values to see. Okay? Very uncommon wherever, I don't see fans. I've given out, I think, 2 fans, and again, I know the reason for it. And the reason was that it wasn't installed properly, meaning the guy went back, had to take a chip, his pick and his shovel and everything and de-ice the unit. He had to wait a few minutes, turn it back on. It worked when he was there, but the fan was damaged. Remember, it's been smashing against ice for hours or days, right? Surprisingly, I've never ever seen the blades broken. Have you ever seen a blade broken? Never.
Not yet.
They seem to be bulletproof. I'm kind of surprised because the motor will burn out, but the blade's still intact. And when you get there, you can hear it. Holy shit! The picture I showed you there, it's quite intense.
Yeah, I still have a broken blade.
Oh, you did? Okay, so you had one. Okay. Did we replace that for you, or it's done? Okay, yeah, it's done now.
It's done.
Okay, I was gonna say I have a pile that I'm never gonna use, so I'd be happy to relieve it. Okay, P8. This is an awesome one. We got one of these the other day, and I spoke to that guy yesterday. I got to go to his job. So crazy but true. The drive board has to have thermal paste on it. Generally, when you go to change it, if it's new, there's probably already enough on there. Just take a nickel and scrape off the excess, and you'll see when you pull this off where the paste is. If you're ever looking for paste, and our boards replacement boards used to come with heat paste, they don't now. I'd encourage you, not just for my unit, but the Medea units, we've got it badged as the ATK, Carrier uses it. It really is a ductless unit converted to a heat pump. The board's on the top, if you've seen it before, and it's got the little sideboard with the red out digits. Anyway, that one requires a whole tube of heat paste. This is minimal in relation to that, but what I'm saying is we should have it because all heat pumps require heat paste now. Not just heat pumps, ductless units. Either way, you get heat paste at, believe it or not, Business Depot, Staples, or Best Buy. So Home Depot is the first place we looked. We couldn't find it, so we had to go to electronics places, and that's for computer boards, right? That's what it is ultimately. I think it's under $15 a tube, but great idea to pick one up. You never know. So P8, you're going to see when you change this board and you don't put any thermal paste. Okay. There's also 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're a pain in the rear to put in, but if you don't tighten them all the way, or if one drops, you're going to get P8. Before you leave, have a look here. I think I said it earlier, but there's a heat sink in here that's probably 6 by 4. So this is a heat sink here. This is to relieve heat. This is to relieve heat. 6 by 4 is a very large heat sink, and it's in the fan compartment, so it tells you how hot this is getting. Okay, so when you see P8, chances are not enough heat paste, or there's a screw that's not tight enough. Worst case scenario, the board itself is bad, but it's pretty unlikely. It probably happened, it probably burned up, and that's why it went bad again. So heat paste, you only want to do this once. What I will say as well is in changing these boards, we don't always give you the case. For example, there's no case on this, so save yourself the time. I wouldn't take the screws from the case out. I would take the screws off the board itself. Otherwise, you're doing double the work. You'll see in the place where this is before you leave, have a look, and you'll say, well, holy shit, you want it to be as easy as possible. And when I did change it, I was wearing this, not this shirt, but a shirt exactly like this, and I had white paste all up and down my arms, so be prepared for that too. It was a first day shirt, thankfully it was one of their shirts, and I was able to get another one. But, keep that in mind. So thermal grease, thermal paste, pick up some. P6, this is rare. I did see this on a customer had a new unit and he got this, and for whatever reason he didn't call me and they pulled the unit. So I talked to him and said, we could have fixed that. So what the problem was is the main control and the drive board was an issue between the two communicating. Chances are it's that little connector board. I've seen that happen as well. Generally. Right. Very possible to be the connector board. In this case right now, if we do have this problem, what I would do is I'd give you, we don't want to waste your time, okay, we know your time's valuable too, so I'd ultimately give you 3 boards. I'd give you the connector board, I'd give you the drive board and the main board. I'd ask you to try this one first. If it didn't work, then you'd have to make the effort and do the main board and the drive board. Okay, but upon you first calling and jump the gun there, what I would ask you to do is, remember this unit came from China in a container. Who knows if it rolled around when it was in the water, what happened? I'd love to put a camera in and kind of see what happens from here to there. Just go through all the terminals on the main board. You'll have to take the top off of the dry board as well, but just make sure everything's nice and snug. Okay, nothing came loose. It's possible. Okay, I did get a call months ago with the same error and we were able to fix it. Actually, I drove all the way out there, sorry. Went like that, the problem was solved. Okay, so try loose connections. Worst case, give me a call. And again, we have parts. I've got more parts. The parts are going to last my whole lifetime. We're not moving parts at all here. Okay. EE. Okay, this Mr. Perfect got this one. So Mr. Perfect insisted I gave him a board, and at this point I take a board, but no problem. So I give him a board. He didn't change. He didn't know, so it's not his fault, but it was awesome anyway. When they change the main board, it's rare, but if you ever do change one of our main boards, there's a blue chip. Blue chip is like a personality module. This board we use on the 3 and the 5 ton. So ultimately it knows whether it's a 2, 3 ton or a 4 or 5 ton. Okay, it knows a little about the unit. If you don't put that chip on, you're going to get the EE code. Okay, and I actually know because he called me on it. Not only are you going to get the EE code, he called me with that, so not too bad. Then he starts listing off just about every single one of the 27 fault codes. So he was upset. I'm having a panic attack. Anyway, it turned out he didn't take off that blue chip from the old board. So we need to take this chip off of the existing board, put it on the new board. Knowing that, what I would encourage you to do on a service call is come here and get the part, do the job, and bring it back. So could you imagine bringing this in? The warehouse guy doesn't know necessarily to look for a blue chip on it, right? You know what I'm saying? So you give it to him, now you're back doing your job and you realize the other part's here. So I would say, let's do it in order. Let's come here, get the parts, change it, come back. We don't always need parts anyway. You can give us a call on that. I may not even need the part back. Let's see how that goes, okay? But
So the new one comes.
the new one will not come with it, no. So it's just going to be bare. So you're going to have to pull it off and put it on again. But it was good anyway. I got Mr. Perfect back. It was good. It was actually a great thing. Okay, this one here. This is a simple one. We wouldn't have a fault code for this, is why I bring it up. This is to do with defrost. So there's a band around the compressor that heats the compressor up when we turn power on to the unit. This also heats up as well. It goes to a hotter temperature during defrost, but this ultimately is here to melt ice. Okay. If it stopped working, again, defrost cycle will still come on. I may not get a code for this. So the symptom would be a hell of a lot of ice at the bottom, and the customer would be saying there'd be noise. Okay, well, this is awesome because all this is a wire. Well, this is a page out of my service manual, so I'm going to locate the terminal. Okay, it's terminal number 3. Labeled really nicely, chassis electric heating belt, so we know what it is. There's no value to this, so it's just a wire, so we're just going to ohm it out, and it's the only thing it could be is a break somewhere on the wire. Very unlikely would happen, but that's the only thing there could be. So we're either going to get a 0 or we're not going to get a 0 when we ohm it out. You could even use the beep noise, it's such a small wire. So if it beeps, it's good. If it doesn't beep, there's a problem with it. Do we have these in stock? I assume we do. I've never had to change. Do we have those? That wire, I've never seen one fail, but do we have this part in stock?
We actually ripped them off a bunch of units, remember?
Okay, there you go, right, so we do have those in stock. When we say that, it's awesome. We were using a trucking company, and I got pictures of units falling off trucks. So when units fell off trucks, we didn't want to resell them to you, so until we got parts, we were just taking parts off them. So the first couple months, that's how we got our parts. We didn't need them, but now we've got cases and cases and crates of them. Okay, when I'm riding my bike, as I say, call me in the summertime if it's after hours. We try to answer. I can't promise Saturday and Sunday. I tell my boss, I say, listen, Lennox, all these major brands, they all close at 5, 6 o'clock, and they all go home on the weekend, even their tech team. So I do try to answer. We want you to succeed. There's myself and Sauger that get the calls. Okay, so we generally will pick up. Texting I may not see because I ride my bike an awful lot. So these are just some tools that I use. We're going to send you the service manual as well, but this is something to go on here when you have time, Saturday morning, or if you go home and sit for a few minutes before you just go on here and check this out. It's Greek Comfort. It's on YouTube. It's incredible. There's a video. I'm not going to waste your time playing the video, but it's actually quite informative. There's another video where they go into the transition for the coil as well. I think it's It's interesting stuff. You might find something out. To be honest, one of the first calls I got, I couldn't find anything in my service manual. So I went on YouTube. I don't know what language the video was in, but it pertained to, anyway, I was able to help the customer by doing that, right? So you never know what you're gonna find on YouTube, but it really has its own little comfort place there. It's pretty cool. And they update it regularly. Okay, I was riding my bike one evening and I got an H4 overcall. This was months ago. Now it's off the top of my head, but months ago. So, shit, what am I gonna do? So, do I have to ride home and stop what I'm doing? I pulled over in the park there and Googled it. So immediately it came up a bunch of crap. Okay, this was the first page. I scrolled down, E4, that was the code, right? E4, H4, either way, believe it or not, I clicked on that and it took me right to the troubleshooting guide. I had step-by-step instructions on what to do. So if you can't get me, these are just tips, I will call you back, but you know, if it's 10 o'clock at night kind of thing, I'll try to call you back. Worst case, I'll call you in the morning. For example, this morning I did one of these, we finished at 11:30ish, somewhere in there. Anyway, I took my lunch and shortly after I called each customer back. So we do call you back, okay? And our service manual, make sure you signed in, so I'll send you the service manual, okay? That's gonna be instrumental for troubleshooting. I'll also have the values on the fan that I'll get you if you want, but they're in the book, okay? Now, I mentioned this pan here, so I've only seen two instances. Our competitors have been telling us about this and customers have been showing us pictures for quite a while of pans that are discolored, disshaped, and cracked. We hadn't seen any, and I was telling my boss, listen, we need some real, we can't just jump the gun until we see something. So now we've had two instances. They're very minimal. I have pictures somewhere available. What we're suggesting, or what we've done proactively, is we brought in these black pans. So if you were to get a unit today, it's already going to have a black pan in it. However, the white pans, for whatever reason, didn't seem to take the heat the way we wanted to see it, okay? So we're going to encourage you to go out and inspect the jobs that you've done, and if necessary, change it to the black drain pan. Now, speak to your sales rep, because Airtek has, they set aside a warranty fund, and I guess they're built up anyway, they're offered to give some allowance to do this, and the allowance is very fair. I've personally done 3 of these with the piping installed. I did not remove the gas. I did it with myself, and actually the camera guy went with me on one. We were going to make a video. Anyway, ultimately I had him hold, I had a ladder and I had him hold, and I was able to do it without taking any gas out. I know Sauger's also done 1 or 2 now without removing gas. 90% of the time, you're going to be able to do it without the gas. Because there's flares, you'll see the way everybody ran their line set, there should be some room to take it out. There's going to be a small amount of times maybe we have to do a pump down, but when you hear the allowance through your sales rep, you'll actually be quite impressed. Okay? I don't know how the other brands are doing it, but I think we're pretty fair with the allowance we're giving. We made a little video I'm going to send out. I think we're going to post it all over the place on how to do this. But if you're interested, I'd like to change the pan now from the white to the gray pan. It takes me, I'd say, under 5 minutes. What I'm showing you for, so you're not afraid, this is something we're going to have to do. If you install these, there's a good chance you're going to see this. I can do it with all the front screws. So I can do it right from the front here. I only need to get to the side for 2 screws here and 1 screw here. Everything else I can do through the front. I've done, most of them I can pull the coil out, right out. But one I didn't have enough space. Anyway, people call me old. I have a mirror, an inspection mirror, before cameras. Anyway, I had my mirror and I used my other hand, and with my other hand and my nut driver, I was able to take out 2 screws at the back. I'll do it now and show you where those 2 screws are, but it can be done. It's really not a difficult job. I'd say around 45 minutes in somebody's house, but I'll do it here in probably 5 to 10 minutes at the most. Now I've used this, I've done it a few times this one, so the screws are kind of out of alignment, so I'm not going to use a nut driver, I'm just going to use a Phillips head, okay? Or you could use a quarter nut driver or a Phillips screwdriver. I've already removed the screws here in all honesty, but I'll show you and talk about that as we go. So here we go. I don't know if you want to set a timer or not. I'm not going to race, but it's not a hard job. Okay, it's not something to be overwhelmed about. And right now it's slow, so if you can find these now and talk to your sales rep about the allowance, you could actually make some pretty good money. If you did even 4 of these a day, you'd be laughing. Again, it's really all just front-facing screws. differentiate the screws that hold the valves a little longer when you're putting them back, so you see a difference in size. One, two. So if you wanted to go and inspect it, you could just take these screws out on previous ones you've done. Dump a little water in there, you can see right down both sides of the pan, so you have a pretty good visual here. Now, I mentioned that we can slide it out, just a little clamp here. Once we take that out, slide it right out. Now, there was a little clamp. Just to show you what it looked like if I can find it. There we go. There was one clamp, so I did have to get to the side for this one screw. Okay. I also had to get to the side for this screw here, for the two screws for this as well. What this does is it goes in through the bottom, not through the top, so everything comes out through the front opening here. This held the secondary pan, so this was a universal coil. It had a pan for horizontal. So I pulled this out through the front opening. When you slide this out, you can just take that pan right off and throw it in the garbage. We don't need it. We've actually probably increased airflow by removing it. What I'm going to do is we'll simulate as if I was in somebody's basement. I'm going to get one of these red stools and pretend it's my ladder or my helper holding it. That's right, take it. Still going. Just because it's a small surface, I'm going to throw this on top. There we go. So there are two screws on the front here. There's another two at the back. So if you can get it out this far, amazing. If not, if you can only get it halfway, you might need an inspection mirror. And you're going to reach your arm in to get the two screws that are here at the back. Okay. I wouldn't bother putting those in, to be honest. I've changed this a few times and there's no screws in the back now. So if you take it off the pan, 4 screws, 2 at the back and 2 at the front the same. 1, 2. Right, so at this point I'd have my helper hold the coil and bring the other pan over it so it'd be in the air. But it's me. Now, there's 2 styles right now. You may or may not get this piece of metal. There's one that has lips on it. If you don't have that, this one will be okay to use in its place. So this will already be in here in most cases. If I give you another one, you can use it. If I don't, it doesn't matter. Now, new pan, something to make note of. We're still in the process of working this out. At this point, what I'd ask you to do is reuse your drain fitting, take out those plugs and replace them. Yeah, that may change. We're still looking into the temperature the plugs are going to take. Back on. Okay, so again, if my helper was here and I was in a basement, it's not terrible. It's not a hard thing to do. Again, there's 2 screws like this in the back. I'm not going to bother unless the homeowner's watching. There was one guy watching. That's why I had to put them down. He's not here right now, so he's not even going to notice. It's done. Now we're going to slide it back in.
Porra, tá sem quando eu等到夏天开都不知道吹。
Now it's just a matter of putting my doors back on.
Då det finns som är det.把螺丝位置那个量好。比你这掏出来好啊！
那样就不用那个什么，不用说明不太满，稍微有点活动。
大概
三十inch。
可是。你要上面大个打出来，大个的是要搞的，还只有俩个，反正小的。
然后这个上面是9个两个车多了吧？
Done. Right, not about 5-10 minutes anyway, and from what I understand, the labor rate's $300. So if you do 3 of those a day, it's $1,200.
300 to change?
Yeah.
Charge customer or the
No. So Airtek put money aside, so if you bought the unit from Airtek, that's what we're willing to give you $300 if that pan had a problem. So we'd ask you to go out, do a quick inspection, snap a photo, change it, give us the old pan, and we'll pay you $300.
If it was clean home,
I don't know, you'd have to ask them what they're doing, I don't know. Okay, again, we really weren't gonna do anything, but we saw we saw competitors and said, haven't seen anything. And we got 2 that were very minimal, it was just a pan was was misshapen, and the other one appeared to have a crack in it. So because of that, we ordered, 300 or more pans, they're sitting in the back here, if we need more, we'll get more. And that's our plan. Any questions at all? Yeah, it's a funny day. This morning it was rammed, and I was supposed to have double the amount of guys, but I think everybody gave up and went home. It's kind of a crappy day. All right, well, if you do have any questions over here, by all means, and don't hesitate. If you do buy a unit from us, we can get you on site the first time around just for peace of mind and set it up together as far as the dip switches, checking temperatures. We can help you somewhat explain to the customer if you want. Otherwise, you just zip our lip. It's up to you, right? We'll be there.
question,